Chapter 2, Microorganisms, Friend and Foe. Part 3. Make sure before going on part 3, you have watched part 2. So let's start with that. In earlier, we have seen that vaccination and microorganisms. Regarding harmful microorganisms, we will see. As you know that microorganisms are harmful in many ways. It causes disease in human beings, plants and animals, that we have seen in the part 2. How it is basically harmful for the humans, plants and animals. Such diseases are called such microorganisms are called pathogens. And some microorganisms spoil food, clothing and leather also. As you have know that if we keep our food or clothes in the moisture area, after few days you can see it has some little bit of fungi on that you have also seen on the bread and some kind of any food materials. That's why normally we people are advised that do not eat the outsider food or the stale food. Different type of the disease can be done by the microorganisms. These pathogens enters into our body through the air we breathe and water we drink or the food we eat. They can also get transmitted by direct contact with an infected person or carried through an animal. That means we can see nowadays that COVID-19 is going on, right? It is not still completed, finished. So if the person is basically sneezing around us, so we must have to cover our face, because some microorganisms can be go through the air into our body through the breathing. Microbial disease that can spread from an infected person to a healthy person through the air, water and food or physical contact are called communicable disease. So COVID-19, we can say this is the example nowadays that is called communicable disease. For example, such disease is included cholera, common cold, chickenpox and tuberculosis. Tuberculosis, the short form is that TB. Okay. There are some insects and animals which act as carriers of the disease causing microbes. For example, housefly is one of the such carrier. The flies sit on the garbage and animal extracted, and pathogens stick to their bodies, that is on their specifically legs. And when these flies sit on the uncovered food, they may transfer the pathogens. So pathogen is one kind of the bacteria. It can be inserted into our body through the some kind of the foods which are not covered, and by mistake or accidentally we have to be ill. Whoever is the containment food is likely to get the sick, so it is advisable to always keep food covered. Another example of the carriers in the female Anopheles mosquito. This is the type of the mosquito which is basically carries the parasite of the malaria. This is the name of the mosquito Anopheles, which can cause for the malaria. The female Aedes mosquitoes act as a carrier of the dengue virus. So this is the diagram as you can see over here. That is Anopheles mosquitoes which cause for the malaria. Here you can see one table, some common human disease caused by the microorganisms. This table you can see in your textbooks also. Human disease, that is tuberculosis, causative microbes, bacteria, mode of transmission air. Then measles, it caused by the virus and it's also mode of the air. Chickenpox, it is also called virus, air and contact. That means chickenpox can happen and it can be contacted virus. So it can come through the air or any kind of the contacted those person who have contact chickenpox, so we can easily infected by that person. Polio, that is virus and the mode of transmission is air and water. So keep the patient in the complete isolation. This kind of patient must be have to keep in the isolation and keep the personal belonging of the patient away from those of the others vaccination to given at the suitable age. Next mode we'll see cholera, that is one kind of the bacteria. It can be cause of the transmission, that is water and food. Typhoid, that is also bacteria, and its mode of the transfer is water. So this kind of person, how we have to manage that person? Maintain personal hygiene and good sanitary habits, consume properly cooked food, and while drinking water, vaccination. The another disease is called hepatitis B, and the causative microorganism is virus, and the mode of transmission is water. So always drink boiled water for and the vaccination to prevent this kind of patient or ourselves also. Last thing is that malaria. The cause of microorganism, that is called protozoa. The name of the microorganism is called protozoa, and the mode of transmission is mosquito. So use mosquito net and repellents. Spray insecticides and control breeding of the mosquitoes by not allowing water to collect in the surrounding. So this is the table. It is already there in your textbook, so you can easily refer that later on also. Let's continue with that. Disease causing microorganisms in animals. In humans we have already seen. Now some microorganisms are infected into the animals also. So several microorganisms not only cause disease in humans and plants but also in other animals. For example, anthrax is the dangerous human and cattle disease caused by the bacteria. So this anthrax disease is, it can be attacked on the human as well as animals also. Food and mouth disease of the cattle is caused by the viruses. You can see around us there are some stray cattle like cows and buffalo. They have some little bit infections on the mouth. So these are basically happens with the different kind of the viruses. This is causing microorganisms in the plant. We have already seen that animals in the humans. So how the plants are infected due to the microorganisms. Several microorganisms cause disease in the plants like wheat, rice, potatoes, sugarcane, orange, apple and others. So the disease reduce the yield of the crops. Some common plant disease caused by the microorganisms. This table 2.2, which is already there in your textbook. Here we'll see once again plant of the disease, that is citrus and canker. Microorganisms is bacteria and mode of transmission is air. The figure you can see over here. Second, rust of wheat. The cause of the microorganism, that is called fungi, and it can be mode of the transmission, that is air and seeds. And yellow vein mosaic of the bindi, that is also called okra. The microorganism's name is virus and the mode of transmission is insected. So this kind of the disease can be happen through the bacteria, fungi and virus, and the mode of transmission is normally air, but in some case it is insected also. Food poisoning. This is the most important thing that you have already heard, and maybe you had some experience in your life also. Food poisoning could be due to the consumption of food spoiled by some microorganisms. So microorganisms that grow on our food sometimes produce toxic substance. So this makes the food poisonous, causing serious illness and even death also. So if we do not cause and if we do not taken care of this kind of particular disease, the person or the maybe patient may be die. So always avoiding the outsider food which is not covered properly and not having some this kind of extra hygienic non-hygienic food, so it can be damaged into our internal parts and the person may be die. So it is very important that we preserve food to prevent it from the being spoiled. So we do not have to eat, or we do not have to have some outsider foods, or maybe in the home also we have to cover the food always, so it can be prevent from this kind of the viruses and fungi or the bacteria. Food preservation. How we have to preserve the food? So let us study some common methods to prepare the food in our homes also. So we have to prevent it from the attack of the microorganisms. Chemical method. There are some methods. Food preservation has different methods in the small scale also or in the large scale also. First method is chemical method. Salt and edible oils are the common chemicals generally used to check the growth of the microorganisms. Therefore, they are called preservation. They are called preservatives. So, the salt and the edible oils are the common chemicals for the preservation of the food. We add salt or acid preservations to pickle to prevent the attack of the microbes. Some students may have knowledge about that. While your mother make the preparation of the pickle, they are basically adding some salt or some kind of the acetic acid it is there. So it can be stop and the attacking of the microbes. So that pickle we can use for a longer period of time. Sodium benzoate and sodium metabolites are the common preservatives which are basically available in the market. You can go and purchase that also and use in the common food so we can use it for the little bit longer time. These are also used in the jam and squash to check their spoilage. Preservation by common salt. Common salt has been used to prevent meat and fish for ages. Nowadays, some fish and meat are available in the tin box. So, for the longer time, they are using some salt and some water also, so that meat cannot be spoiled and we can use after few days and few months also. Meat and fish are covered with the dry salt and check the growth of the bacteria. Salting is also used to preserve amla, raw mangoes, tamarind, etc. So salt can be used in the some other materials, so we can preserve it and we can use it for the later on. Preservation by sugar. So this is another substance we can use for the preservation. Like jams, jellies and squash are preserved by the sugar. Sugar reduces the moisture content which inhibits the growth of the bacteria which spoil the food. So it can stop to evolving or develop the bacteria into the food, and that food we can use for some later time also. Preservation by oil and vinegar. Use of oil and vinegar prevents spoilage of the pickles because bacteria cannot live in such an environment. Vegetables, fruit, fish and meat are often preserved by this method. That means if we have to preserve or if we have to use some food after few days or after few months, so we can use this kind of preservation method with the help of oil and vinegar, so it can stop to develop the harmful bacteria to spoil the vegetable, fruit, fish and meat. Heat and cold treatment. You must have observed your mother boiling milk before it's stored or used. This is the common method. So why? So boiling kills many microorganisms. That is in like a pandemic also we come to know that we always use the boiled water, because while we are boiling, what happened? Some microorganisms which are harmful to the body is easily die in that, and it cannot be infected to our body. Similarly, we keep our food in the refrigerator. Low temperature inhibitors and to grow the microorganisms, because temperature is also plays the most important role to develop or to kill the not kill but to develop the microbes. So it is not easily developed very fast, and we can save the food for the little bit longer time. Pasteurization milk can be consumed without boiling as it is free from the harmful microbes. Pasteurization method you have already learned in the lower classes, so here no need to explain once again. The milk is heated about 700 degrees centigrade for 15 to 30 seconds and then suddenly chilled and stored. This is one kind of the method, and by doing so it prevents the growth of the microbes. So due to the pasteurization, we can stop to develop the microbes into the milk. This process was discovered by the Louis Pasteur. This is the name of the scientist who developed this, Louis Pasteur, and it is called the pasteurization. Now the things, next point is that storage and packing. This is the most important thing. So these days dry fruits and even vegetables are sold in the sales. Airtight packets are prevented the attack of the microbes. So normally the food materials are available in India. Not big companies are basically doing all these things, but in foreign countries, even you can even fish or some meat also available in the tin packet, so we can use in the longer period of time. Here you can see some packets are airtight and some vacuums are there, and sometimes it is very much sticky, so the bacteria are not going to be developed into that and they can use it later on. The next thing is that nitrogen fixation. This is the last topic of this chapter. So you have learned about the bacterium, okay, that is rhizobium in the class 6 and 7. What is that? It is involved in the fixation of nitrogen in leguminous plants, that is pulses. Rhizobium lives in the root nodules of the leguminous plants such as beans and peas, with which it has a symbiotic relationship. Sometimes nitrogen gets fixed through the action of lightning, but you know that the amount of nitrogen in the atmosphere remains constant. Right? This is the diagram. You can see 2.9 rows of the leguminous plants without nodules. Okay. Nitrogen cycle. In our atmosphere, there are 78% of nitrogen gas. Nitrogen is one of the essential constituents of the all living organisms as part of proteins, chlorophyll, nucleic acid and vitamins. The atmospheric nitrogen cannot be taken directly by the plants and the animals. We cannot use it directly. So, certain bacteria and blue-green algae present in the soil fix nitrogen from the atmosphere and convert into the compounds of the nitrogen. That means some kind of the blue-green algae and some bacteria are basically consumption of the nitrogen from the air, and it can enter into the soil. Once nitrogen is converted into this usable compound, it can be utilized by plants from the soil through that root system. So nitrogen can be converted and it can be used through the plants. Nitrogen is then used for the synthesis of the plant's proteins and other compounds. Animals feeding on the plants get these proteins and other nitrogen compounds. In figure 2.10, that means in your book is also there, figure 2.10, you can see the nitrogen cycle, how the nitrogen cycle is basically working. You can see over here atmospheric nitrogen, okay, that is it is basically nitrogen fixing bacteria and blue-green algae fix atmospheric nitrogen. Then bacteria in turn fix nitrogen into the nitrogenous compound. Then compounds of the nitrogen in the soil, that is uptake by the plants. Animals eat plants and nitrogen waste from the accession of the dead. Again the compounds will be there. So this is the nitrogen cycles that you have to remember and draw this diagram into your notebooks. So this is useful for us. With this topic, our chapter is completed. If you have any doubts or any queries, you can contact. Thank you.